I was just curious if you could go over your favorite argument again. I didn't really get a chance to write it out. Because I was just curious, what's like the one killer point?
Let's see, a killer point. Let's see, I'll find a good one here. Morality versus worship is still my favorite one, so if you write down chapter 2, then you can read about it because it's pretty long. I don't want to go over it again. But I can go through the natural disaster argument. I also mentioned I love that one. A common one that I don't love as much is kind of a philosophical argument. That's the true love argument. That's to say that heaven is defined as everlasting love and peace and communion with God. And if you love somebody who hasn't heard the word of the Lord or lived a good life but doesn't accept Jesus Christ as their Savior, they're going to go to hell, and you'll be separated from that person, making it not everlasting peace and happiness and communion with God if you're without that person who you actually love. Yeah.
Have you ever engaged with the Christian universalist perspective along the lines of like Thomas Talbot or Gregory MacDonald?
Probably not.
Because they actually have same problems with that difficulty that you just mentioned, and as a result, their view is more in line with yours, except for the God thing.
A lot of people, the most common argument against that, the true love argument I just told you, is actually that when you get to heaven, if you loved someone who didn't get there, your memory is wiped clean of them. So that's what I've heard from Lutherans specifically. Actually, I don't know if that's in Luther's text, but I know that at a Lutheran church I was told that, which seems, kind of ridiculous as well. Maybe ignorance is bliss. I don't know. Yeah.
If the resurrection of Christ is the basis of Christianity, then why didn't Christianity die out when it got started?
Why didn't it die out? Well, it didn't die out because there were certain people who were very committed to it, and they went out and preached to other people, and then they were converted. And then eventually they got political support in the form of Constantine, that once you sanction a religion to an entire nation, then they're required to switch that religion. After that point, if in the Bible it tells you to spread the word of Jesus Christ, it's your godly duty to do that. So if everybody who believes that that's the true religion does that, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy of universal Christianity.
So like the guys that encountered Jesus firsthand and stuff, after he rose again and appeared to all these guys, they went out and spread the message, and that sparked Christianity?
Not really. The Christian teachings were around before that, and before he was a well-recognized prophet before his death and resurrection. It would have probably continued without his resurrection, because the virgin birth and everything, that seems kind of far-fetched, so that would give him enough of magical powers.
But even like Paul says, like in Corinthians, where he's like, if Christ is not risen, then we're supposed to be the most pitied among men, because we're still living for a God who's not alive.
Paul also never met Jesus. So we don't.
Doesn't mention the virgin birth. Also says, if Jesus were to have been the Son of God, then such and such. Paul's probably not a good source.
Yeah.
But he's the earliest, right, of all of the New Testament.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
He's like, that's chronologically Paul's writings.
That is true. Comes very soon.
Do you know what year, roughly?
100 to 300, maybe.
I'd say probably around 50s or 60s. Yeah. Within.
Are we talking about? What are we talking about? Paul specifically, or the?
Paul's letters.
Oh, Paul.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, probably around, maybe I would say 60, still close to 80, but that's my guess based on my notes that I don't have with me.
Documented as much as you can rely on those sources.
That's very true.
Nobody knows if it actually happened. You can throw out a year, but it's nobody here.
Yeah,
was born in 2,000 years ago. Then
that's
you still have a little bit of doubt about all those figures that are given.
It's a very true point as well. I usually don't commit to specific numbers like, oh, Paul was written in year 50, specifically for that reasons, because tomorrow we could find a document that proves that that's not the case, and I don't want to be the one to say that. Yeah.
It's just interesting as well, like, I guess, because like I've read the Bible quite a bit, and one of the basic premise of the Bible, it says like, no man is good, like no man leads a perfectly moral life, and you mentioned a lot of times kind of like good person, moral person, and so maybe not so much disproving Christianity, but just disagreeing with the basic premise of the Bible that people aren't good, because you just said things like, if someone who lives a moral life apart from the Bible or something, when the Bible would say that's not possible.
All right.
So I'm curious if you address that at all.
As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Romans 3:10. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Genesis 7:1. Confess your faults one to another, and pray for one another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent of prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Basically, I'm just saying that there are various points in the Bible, including Lot, who we see committing a lot of sins, justified as righteous or good in God's eyes. So, I mean, you brought up a very good point for me. Thank you.
I just also,
Yeah.
It's important, especially like Romans, to take it in context because it's a really big theological argument. So Paul makes an argument that no one's righteous, but then we become clothed with Christ's righteousness. So it's just important to note that no man is righteous, but then through God, that can change. So just important to note that you take things in context.
That is very true. You can't be righteous unless you know God. Anyone else? All right, I think I'm done.